Hello, and welcome to 20 Lore Pro, the competitive resource for Lorcana players who enjoy deck building, competing, and talking all things Lorcana. You can find out more at our Discord community, 20lore.pro/discord, link in the description. Are you looking to take your competitive Lorcana play to the next level? Check out 20 Lore Pro's coaching channel, where we have coaches ready to help you play your best at the next big event. Link in the description. 20 Lore Pro is heading to Charlie's Collectible Show in Stone Mountain, Georgia, June 22nd through the 23rd for their Lorcana 10K tournament. Head on over to Charlie's Collectible Show's website, link in the description, where you can sign up for their 10K tournament. Look forward to watching that in June. Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. Today I am joined here with BDeCandio7, Wonderland, and Jebas as we take a look at Ursula's Return. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we hope that you enjoy today's video. As we are looking into set 4, I kind of want to take a step back and look at set 3 and maybe some of the tournament play that happened. Can y'all talk for just a second on some of y'all's big accomplishments during the set 3 format? Could you take us off with that, Wonderland?
Oh, daggers. At least I get to go before the people who have actual finishes get to go. I mean, I won some stitches, I guess, 2 stitches in a playmat. I can't remember. I think the 1K was in set 2. So I had a lot of bubbles, some heartbreaks. I got my first scrub out was in the last event. I played red purple aggro and played up against Steel Song in the first round, and I just knew at that point it was over. There was no coming back from the 0-2 in the first round. But yeah, I mean, I won some stitches playing red, blue, and red purple aggro. Not too much in set 3, which is another reason I'm really excited for set 4. I feel like set 3 and me did not get along as much as it did with these other 2.
We're excited alongside you, Wonderland. Well, Jebas, how did you do in set 3? How did it treat you in tournament play?
It's okay. I also played in some of the Stitch set champs and did a couple first places and a second place. So I got a few stitches there. And then in a few of the TIA events, I had some okay placements, top 4s and some top 16s kind of thing. No wins there, but we're still, trucking along.
That's awesome. And that's something about set 3 that brought in this store championship, Rockstar Stitch Enchanted. Really exciting to just be able to play in your local game store, but then also kind of competitive with how the prices spiked with that card. And BDeCandio, you had quite a few stitches, is that right?
I only had 1. I got gatekeepered out of 2 of them by blue red.
No.
Yeah, I played in 3 total events, and I lost for playing for a stitch twice to blue red, and that was obviously frustrating. So then the third one, I was like, I'm just gonna play green steel, and then I played against blue red 4 times, and I beat it every single time. And I didn't get the playmat, but I lost to someone I knew, so that was fine. No, I played in a lot of the T events. I played in 5 of them. I won 2 of them and lost in the top 16 of 2 of them to the eventual winners of the events. Jebas had to beat you for the first one. That was fun. That was an insane game, or insane match, really, the whole thing. I would say that the thing I learned from set 3, and I think what Ravensburger did a really good job of that was lacking in the first 2 sets for sure. I mean, I think they will admit it too in a lot of ways, is that the color diversity really wasn't at all balanced. There were color pairs which were significantly better than the other 2 or other ones you could put together. It's like 15 color pairs you could potentially play in the game. So yeah, I mean, Ruby Amethyst and Amber Steel for the first 2 sets were, in my eyes, the only 2 choices to really make as far as being competitive. And this set we saw a whole variety of different decks that really kind of came through, and they did a really good job. It was definitely, the big picture of the first year was a success once it all came together. A lot of Emerald came through, and Sapphire kind of picked up in a big way too. Tamatoa, which was planted in the first set, really kind of came to fruition today. As a card, when we first saw set 1, we all knew it would be good eventually. It was a great format, and I really liked how well the metagame kind of evolved. There are obviously some cards that are maybe off on power level a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. It's just a learning experience for not just us, but for them going forward as well.
The fact that the format opened up so much with archetypes you could play was definitely one of the highlights of it, for sure. While they kind of filled similar roles, it did give you slight different percentages versus different archetypes, which is always nice. The only issue really I had with the meta was just the polarization of just some matchups felt so unwinnable or just like such a blowout. But I mean, I played Steel, so poor aggro players have felt that way again. Versus grab your swords for years, for like since the game came out. So I guess I don't like having to feel the way my opponents felt in set 1. I guess
I think that's a little bit of a symptom of just only having 3 sets so far. It feels a lot like some of the old Magic the Gathering sort of block constructed formats where it does get very rock, paper, scissors in the metagame just because there just aren't that many cards. So the more powerful ones from each individual strategy, you're just going to see them a lot more because there just aren't as many redundant copies. There aren't different types or flavors of those type of things. You have limited answers to also limited threats. So you just see a lot more rock, paper, scissors because it's harder to, sort of balance between 2 types of decks. There just aren't as many cards available to try and do that. When we circle back around on the same kind of conversation by set 10, we probably will see just a huge variation on decks, and then that rock, paper, scissors probably won't be quite as relevant.
I mean, one nifty thing is to just look at the set 3 decks and pair them up against the unbeatable red-purple from set 1, and it would just like dominate the red-purple deck, like almost guaranteed. And the Steel Song deck would probably also get beaten unless it had like the best draw it could have,
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of interesting how better the decks are in set 3 than they were in set 2 and 1.
I feel like they were just a lot of fun to play. I know you were saying Wonderland that sometimes it could just be like daunting, like you're just getting smashed against your deck's weakness. But there was a lot of times where I was playing with my friends in our local game store where I was just like, even though I lost, this really was like, I got to play. Like I was doing my strategy. I got stopped, but like I was doing stuff.
Getting to play the game is great. And that's like the best part. Like if both players get to play their full game, they get to do their stuff, it's like fun, especially if it goes like in a best of 3, if it goes 2-1, right? Because then that game 3, you get that pressure, it's as long as it's not a blowout. And that's just the issue is like if your opponent goes turn 1 Cindy and then they have the song on turn 2 to kill your character with like maybe a random 2-drop that does something with a 3-drop that then sings Whole New World and then they kill everything you play, like that can be quite frustrating to play against because you don't get to actually do your thing. But that's just the game we play, which has its ups and downs. Like when both decks are super powerful though, then you get to have that same experience where you do play everything.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you think we may see some of that with set 4 with some of these powerful cards that have been kind of revealed and shown?
Maybe not as much. I think at first it's going to happen and decks are going to have to adapt. And I think it's going to happen because there's quite a few cards that have big lore advantages, like the new Flynn Rider gaining 3, interactions like that, just so much more lore gain at a faster rate, that the slower decks are going to feel that way until they literally have to adapt. It's like if you bring a precon to a constructed event, right? Like you're not going to compete. But I think once everyone kind of adapts to if the meta speeds up or slows down, like with so many Diablos being played today, people are running main deck cannons. So the meta shifts so quickly, but I think it'll get better actually.
Yeah, from just playing a bit past couple of days, I think one of the biggest things I've noticed with this set versus some of the other ones is, and I think what helps dictate a lot of the speed of formats has really been Steel Songs, honestly, that deck in general, because of how snowball-y that songs are. Just in general, just because they're essentially just free cards over and over every turn. You kind of develop a board but keep getting free effects to keep your opponent behind the entire time. There weren't too many cards that I would say fit into that classic conceptualization of Steel Songs that might cause it to be amplified more than it was previously. So I'm not too worried yet of us kind of going down that path of it being even worse than it has been, but maybe not enough to punch the mold that's existing right now is my only concern. Certainly some of the cards in the set are going to get people the first couple times. You mentioning Diablo, people like, oh, that's something you have to answer, and Mulan, which we we'll probably get to eventually in this thing, is something you have to make sure you're aware of. That yes, when they can put that 6-cost Mulan onto the Elite Archer, it's going to be a bad day for you if you are left yourself vulnerable to it. But every set will have those kind of learning curves for a minute, and then everyone will figure it out, and things will shift around. People haven't figured it out.
So before we jump into set 4, Jebas, could you talk about what card you think from set 3 had the most impact and was one of your favorite cards to play?
Yeah, so it really did feel like that Smee sort of found its place in a lot of decks. I think it was one of the better cards out of set 3. To the point where I ended up getting off of red purple entirely. Some of that was because of Dime as well, but running Smee both as an offensive and defensive card, being a 2-lore 2-drop, but also as a 3/3 all on its own. It's a huge stat line and a huge amount of lore gain. A lot of pressure it can apply.
Yeah, I think originally a lot of people were kind of off Mr. Smee, and then there was a point where it's like, oh no, if I'm playing steel, blue steel, I need to play Mr. Smee. He puts so much pressure down onto the board very quickly.
Also really defensive, just as a 3/3 body. Sometimes you can just challenge what your opponent is doing once or twice, and that's good enough to buy you enough time to play the rest of your game.
Wonderland, what would you say was one of your most played cards from set 3 and one that you think performed incredibly well?
Well, obviously it's Airfoil. That is the best card in set 3. Have you seen that thing? It draws cards. You get to play actions, which are the funnest cards in the game to play. I definitely had a bit of success with that. I had a lot of success with 3-drop Ursula. Copying spells is just so powerful. I like playing the green steel, just shooting things, drawing cards. Also green purple. I recently started playing, and I should have listened to Artifact sooner. The deck is insane. Pretty fun. If the meta's right for it, it's unstoppable. But when BDeCandio is playing Amber Steel, it's maybe not what you want to be doing.
Yeah, Ursula, I think, was rated really high during the last set review that we did with you, Jebas, and R&B. Another card being the Bare Necessities. But you're right, in Emerald, Ursula just did a lot of work this season. BDeCandio, what would you say from set 3 was one of your favorite cards and maybe one of the most impactful ones?
I liked a lot of different cards. I played with a lot of different decks as well. The most impactful from my perspective, aside from the ones that were already kind of mentioned, Ursula and Smee, which did help shape the format. Ursula, influenced literally how Steel Songs has to mulligan. Even though you want to have Cinderella and let the Storm Rage on, it's not so that you can consistently keep against an aggressive deck, which is odd, a feeling, because getting taken is such a big backbreaking effect. But one I think that kind of helps revamp an archetype, which we all kind of laughed at, I would say, in set 2 was Ruby Sapphire. Lucky Dime and Medusa really were a 2-card package there that really put so many decks on their heads when, I think one of the first or second events, the online via events, they were, not quite refined there yet. They existed. We weren't sure what they looked like. But once they kind of came to, it's proven to be one of the best decks in the format. And it's kind of on the back of those 2 cards, I think, is Medusa icing out any of the steel threats that they want to develop to help gain advantages, and Lucky Dime helping Tamatoa team up and take out Ruby Amethyst, even through their swaths of removal. Just being in play for a turn is enough to help win the game with that lore gain, and definitely something that's on everyone's radar going into Atlanta.
Yeah, going into Atlanta, like we had been saying, it's just this 2-game format. Sometimes we kind of know the deck that we want to play, but switching it up to this 2-game set can really make you think. Well, as we're looking into set 4, Ursula's Return, really great to have a new set enter into the Lorcana scene and the play space. We'll get to kind of have a setting of set 3 as we see Atlanta being the last major tournament competition with set 3 cards. But going into set 4, into Chicago, really excited to see kind of what happens and comes from that. But Jebas, could you talk to us for a second about what your first impressions are of set 4 and what you think about it so far?
Yeah, so set 4 introduces sort of the shift with an alternative cost, which in this case is discarding various types of cards. And coming from a Magic background and even Lorcana with some of the songs being generally free a lot of the time, any card that has a very low resource cost like that, or something that is effectively free a lot of the time outside of your normal paying ink, is always something to keep an eye on. because it can be really scary. You know, if somebody's able to play multiple of these in a single turn, they're going to be able to get a huge advantage. And on top of that, it seems like we got a lot of better answers in basically every color now to some of the problems that we were having before. You know, purple now has the ability to deal with ward characters earlier in not an incredible card, but it is something that if, you know, something like Bucky, for example, becomes a huge problem again, that they now have some ability to interact with. And then there's just more really interesting songs that have come out, and it'll be cool kind of to see how some of the new threats line up with some of the new answers.
Yeah, I think having that shift, just that extra paying ability, you don't have to use your resources from ink necessarily to do it. Like, you're right, I think that's going to be kind of a changer that we'll see take a big effect. And not to steal anyone's thunder, but the Sing Together song, another really unique mechanic that I can't wait to hear kind of more of y'all's competitive opinion on and the impact that might have. Wonderland, what would you say are your first impressions, or did I take the cake from you?
Well, I'll talk about Sing Together because I think that's like probably my favorite new ability. I mean, I do like Diablo. I think the alternate cost of playing it is pretty neat. It's quite a big drawback, but I think it's probably fine depending on how they kill it. But the Sing Together just seems really fun. I'm a big fan of Look at This Family. They're playing with it today. I think it's reasonably cost with how many cards Amber has that have a higher singer cost, such as Cinderella and Ariel. And as Jebas said, there's more songs. So Ariel kind of gets to be played in you could probably play her in every color combination that has Amber in it now. And you couldn't really do that before. It still might be a stretch in some ways. With all the singer bonuses, like the new Ariel for 4 that sings 7, you can just sing this Look at the Family, you can sing Be Prepared, and then drop characters down, which is always an interesting thing. So your opponent has to at least be aware of it. And Look at This Family, just being able to grab a Rapunzel and damaged character at once is just a really cool interaction. And just the draw 5 Sing Together, and then you mix any of them with an Ursula to do it twice. It's just a really cool mechanic.
I know that's a question that a lot of people had was, does the Ursula double sing together a song and you can do it again?
They've explicitly said that 2 Ursulas will not let you do it twice, but they've not said how it works with the one. But we are fairly certain, based off of how I would say most of the cards function in Lorcana, it's what makes sense. And I believe it will let you do it twice, but who knows?
Yeah, they'll have to kind of come up with an answer kind of soon because of Chicago.
I believe that we're supposed to be getting a lot of the details the Monday after release, but I'm not certain. So we'll see. We should know more by then, or at least the next week. Definitely before Chicago, though.
DeCandio, what would you say from set 4? What are your first impressions and your feel for the cards that have been spoiled?
So there's a lot of cards that are changing how decks are going to be built, but also how people have to interact with certain color pairs. To me, namely, I think there's now 3 more colors got ways to gain lore outside of questing, I believe. I know Phil, he's one of the ones to keep an eye on there, and it's lots in a lot of ways because of the number of heroes that exist that cost 1 in the game. I mean, one of the big problems for decks when I play a lot of Steel Song, for that is closing, and I'm not a big flute fan, but when you cast a whole new world, say access to 7 ink, and you just immediately draw into this and 3 other 1-drop characters which otherwise don't have much text, you just get to gain 3 lore, and if they don't answer it, it's a whole bunch more lore. This kind of 4-cost inkable, which is a great place to be. Honestly, Steel and Amber didn't have many 4-cost inkable characters you wanted to play besides Rapunzel up until this point. In the vein of 4-cost cards, Super Goof is just another card altogether, which you're able to gain lore outside of traditional questing with an immediate impact on the board. And your opponent, facing these colors can no longer sit back with their removal, let you overextend, and then be prepared your board away. They have to respect the fact that now you can gain lore through other means than that they might not be able to interact with. Flynn Rider's Frenemy, I think is what it's called. The 2/2 that if you have characters with more strength than your opponent does, you gain 3 lore at the start of your turn. I mean, in theory, that's just 4 lore a turn if you're able to quest with it, and without even having to expose it to getting challenged, getting to just gain 3 lore a turn is incredible. Yeah, those are two big ones for me. A Pirate's Life, the Sing Together Ruby card is a little counterintuitive in some way because you're using a character which could quest to sing, so the gaining part of the lore doesn't really make too much sense. But making your opponent lose lore and kind of not missing out on what you'd be questing on it can be impactful. I've tried a lot of different decks with like Mulan Reflecting from set 2. That's like the one that look at the top part of your deck, and if it's a song, play it for free. A bunch of stuff like that. And yeah, we've gotten a whole lot of tools. There's really no way for me to know what the format's going to look like. Some decks get a boost, some don't really get too much, but a whole bunch of decks get a bunch of new tools, and some decks kind of just are now came out of nowhere because they got the tools they need to really exist now. So a lot of stuff to explore, but those colors getting some ways to gain lore kind of out of nowhere really will change how the game is played in a good way.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards just from set 4, like you were saying, that I think are going to really increase the power level of some decks that were already in existence, and then also help decks that were possible, that were kind of being theory crafted. If we just had this type of card or one more of this, it can be viable, and some of them have gotten it. So it's an exciting time to be a deck brewer and to try to build some of these.
I will say, and I'm definitely jumping the gun on the card I've been most excited about. Now, we saw the 6-cost Mulan, on debut of the release for it, Mulan Elite Archer, which is incredible that it guns down your opponent's board very well when challenging. But I don't think I could have dreamt up a better card to shift on top of than the 1-cost Mulan that enters damaged. That card is just beyond my kind of wildest dreams. For what I wanted something to look like. And you're mentioning missing pieces. If only how this one thing, the last card revealed was Mulan Injured Soldier. And from someone who wants to play some Ruby or Mufasa and I like healing effects, I wanted a 1-cost Mulan. I was happy with a 2/2, but this is just, oh boy, Michelin star, chef kiss, actually.
My favorite Disney princess is Mulan. I love the movie, love the character development, love the character. And I've been saying we don't have a good Mulan, and that was answered.
And now you have 2.
It's excellent. A good time to be a Mulan fan. BDeCandio, what would you say is one of the strongest color pairings from set 4?
Ruby, anything really. Ruby got a plethora of tools in this set, but Ruby Amber is one of my biggest picks for multiple reasons. Not just just the amount of cards that it got to. Ruby, I think, really got redefined in this set more than any other color, because prior to this, Ruby was really the Maui Be Prepared Tremaine Medusa color. That's really what it was. It wasn't really much else. You didn't go to Ruby for too many other cards, but now we're playing Ruby characters on turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we want them to kind of hang out for a while here. And Ruby getting those characters really put it ahead.
Wonderland, what would you say was the most powerful color from set 4, and possibly the color pairing that you can see being pretty viable in the next set?
Well, Amber Ruby definitely is going to have a lot of people playing it in the beginning, as well as Green Steel, I think, and possibly anything comboed with Diablo. I think a lot of people are going to try to play it a lot.
Jebas, what do you think was, from set 4, just from your initial impressions of the set, one of the strongest colors from set 4?
I think that in set 4, green got some of the more powerful tools that it kind of didn't have access to previously. Like Diablo is really strong, which we've already mentioned a little bit. I think that We Don't Talk About Bruno is most often going to do a very good sort of Dragonfire type impression where it's just a hard removal spell. It's also a song that you can sing with something like Ariel, or there are ways of improving your Ursula with one of the locations, Atlantica, to have it be +2 for songs, to be able to sing We Don't Talk About Bruno twice, which can be really powerful as well. But I think the card that I'm most interested in out of green that they got is Under the Sea, because it's actually one of the few board wipes that this game actually has access to. It's difficult for me to want to underestimate any real way of interacting with the board that is one-sided. Under the Sea being the Sing Together 8 song that puts all opposing characters with 2 strength or less on the bottom of their player's decks in any order. If you combine that with the Kida from set 3, the Shift Kida, that shrinks all of the strength of the entire board by 3 for the turn. If you shift that out, that's already 5 towards singing the song. So as long as you have, any 3 or combination of 3 outside of that, You can Under the Sea, and essentially anything that's 5 strength or less on your opponent's board just is gone. It's all to the bottom of their deck, which it can be very powerful because you get to keep your board and they don't have theirs anymore. So I think that combo is really sort of what's interested me early on with set 4 here.
Yeah, that just sounds incredibly strong. And the Sing Together card, again, just something that you can play earlier on if you have the characters in order to do it, that can make a huge impact.
Cards in this set that are kind of, I think, underrated in this set. Hidden Cove. 1 cost Emerald Cove. So it's a 1 cost 1/6. Doesn't give any lore, which has been traditionally not very good for locations, but this thing gives anything that's here +1 strength and +1 willpower. It's very easy to put on characters. And in situations, this can just essentially let a bunch of apparent trades on the board that are going to happen completely go in your favor. It's like a Cogsworth effect. It costs 1. It can move around. For cards like Flynn Rider, Frenemy that care about the strength of your characters, being greater than your opponents, this is huge for that. This helps play around some of the most popular removal that we're going to see: Brawl, as well as a lot of those characters in Steel that are 3 power, like Sad Beast or Robin Hood, get out of Medusa range. We talked about how important that card has been in the format. This card just seems so innocuous, and it's so efficient at what it does, just costing 1/1 to move things around. It's kind of like almost like an equipment, kind of from Magic in a lot of ways. You just put on there, give it a little bit of buff, but I think it's a very powerful card that we're going to see a lot of kind of sneak into decks at some points in time.
Well, speaking of brewing, each of y'all have brought a deck to kind of talk about today from set 4. Jebas, could you walk us through your deck today that you have to present to us?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a sort of Kida combo Amber Emerald deck that sort of focuses on a bit of discard and a bit of the song synergies with Ariel, Ursula, as well as the discard synergies that Prince John has. It's able to leverage the Kida shift plus the Under the Sea, and then any one of your 3-drop characters to effectively, or 4-drop in the case of Ursula or Rapunzel or Muses, to be able to effectively wipe your opponent's board of anything that has 5 strength or less. We don't talk about Bruno just to deal with the other things, and it is able to leverage Painting the Roses Red, sort of in combination with the Muses, as well as just your other characters to be able to bounce something as well as draw a card.
Yeah, I can see the Muses here, like we were talking about earlier, really making an impact, especially in this deck. But having the discard power that you see with Prince John, very viable in drawing cards.
Yeah, you get the bare necessities alongside Ursula to target specific cards in your opponent's hand, including the 4-drop Ursula, the shift one, which can steal even more of them. It makes the 4 copies of Under the Sea less obnoxious as an 8-drop uninkable, because if they're bad, you have both Diablo and Ursula to be able to discard them for the shift if you need, because it is both an action and a song. And then you have your 3-drop Ursula, the Deceiver, which can double sing the Painting the Roses Red or the Bare Necessities or the Sudden Chill. Sometimes it can even double sing the Under the Sea to put them back into your deck if you're so inclined. We don't really have the ability to shuffle, so it doesn't feel like we're ever going to really get to the bottom of our deck particularly often. But we do have Ariel, which can move more of the cards up. You can keep replaying your Ariel over and over with the Muses. Basically, you use the Ariel to sing a song, and then you use the Muses to bounce the Ariel back to your hand, and then replay it, go find another song. So there's just a lot of things going on here that all sort of work together that I like a lot. It has card advantage engines, it has targeted discard, it has not targeted discard, it has targeted removal, board wipe potential. You can keep replaying. You can literally play your Kida every turn that you have a song and Muses in play. Because when you play Kida, it shrinks the power, or the strength rather, of all of your characters, including the Kida. And you can just bounce it again with the Muses as long as you sing a song. So you could just keep doing it if you want to.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty powerful combo and a really good start to enter into set 4 with. Thank you so much, Jebas, for showing us your Kida discard. Wonderland, you have also brought us a deck, and it is Amber Amethyst. Bruno Tutor, could you walk us through your deck?
Well, it's kind of just like a tempo aggressive deck in a way. Like, it's just to take advantage of the interaction of Bruno and Alma being able to tutor up a card you want and need, use Bruno to then like gain lore off of it, and then like draw that, be able to use it. So you can just use her to tutor up another copy of her, and then so every turn you're naming her. And then if you need like an aggressive card, you can do that. You can bounce it back to your hand. I mean, you just have the whole bounce package, and then you play like a few random madrigals that have different abilities that either draw cards, are threatening lore-wise, heal to draw cards, are aggressive with rush. And you kind of just fill those ways, and you use Bruno to like basically win the game, or through burst amounts of lore gain.
Well, I hope that you're able to fully test this deck out in the close future. It's very sad that you haven't gotten to really like see it all off, but like you were saying, it does sound like a very good concept.
I mean, this was the only card that I've come across that doesn't work out of the whole set. So like big props, like
yeah, it's huge.
The program's been up and running very quickly. Very well done.
Thank you so much, Wonderland, for bringing us this list. I think it's also another great start and something that I want to look forward to playing here in the future. BDeCandio, you have an update for us. Very excited to see this with your Amber Ruby Mufasa. Can you take it away and tell us a little bit about set 4 Mufasa?
Yeah, we've kind of harped on a lot of the cards that are in the deck currently. I mean, a lot of the interactions we've all kind of recognized as this is a very, I think, easy to build off of deck. This is one of the decks that existed prior in the game and has just kind of gotten a bunch of tools. You know, when I dreamed a dream for having a 1-cost 2/2 Mulan, I didn't think it'd be far exceeded by getting a character that not only was a 1-cost Mulan, but also was self-damaging to make this deck, get a huge power boost, not just with Julieta Madrigal making extra copies of Rapunzel essentially happen, but just the fact that we have another self-damaging character when played for such an efficient cost. That also works with Mulan Elite Archer, which is, in my opinion, the best card in the set, or close to it. It's truly awesome, and I've had a lot of fun playing this deck specifically today. And yeah, we have the self-damaging characters, Mulan, Gothel. There's no Beast here. I think it's a little bit overcosted, even though it's 3 cost. I talked about Lumiere being a front side strength buff, which kind of helps a lot of key points in this deck, more so on defense than offense, in my opinion. The strength buff on defense helps cards like Mulan, like Gaston, Doc, Super Goof. All those things are no longer vulnerable to Mim Fox, which was a huge boon for a lot of the cards in this deck. That just, you could play it, use it. Great, you get your discount from Doc one time, but then they just Fox it and you immediately lose it. But Lumiere just gives an extra point of strength and lets those trades happen to where trading favorably against, I'm going to go ahead and be hyperbolic again, what I think is the best card in the game still in Madam Mim. It just having that interaction not be as detrimental for you with the strength buff from Lumiere. It's pretty significant. But Lumiere is the real deal in that sense. It has a bunch of synergies and helps protect some cards from Madame Medusa and Tremaine, in the fact that it's fodder for Tremaine, and the strength buff on Medusa, getting some cards like even Mufasa itself out of reach, being Medusa is a pretty big deal. I'm experimenting with some number of Gastons. It's a kind of a Doc adjacent. Being uninkable is a big difference, but getting a 2-cost discount is a pretty immense amount of a discount. Goes straight from 3 to Tremaine or Medusa, which I can only imagine if you're going first in a mirror match, developing your Gaston versus their Doc, you're going to be able to Tremaine them and they're not going to be able to do anything. Is a pretty poor feeling and definitely can lead to a lot of games snowballing, but very Doc adjacent. And again, being hyperbolic, as it were, I think the second best card in the set is Super Goof, or not the first. Mulan and Super Goof are the number 1 and 2 and some number for me. Helping you close out games that you've gained a ton of lore and just need to cross the finish line with. Super Goof lets you have that reach just to help get there. Gets the 20 lore. Yeah, it's just really great at controlling the board, swinging games back and forth. There's some thought to making, putting cards in your deck that lets you attack with it more than once in a turn, but you don't really need that. You just having it as a threat in and of itself also changes how people have to play against you, because they can't, they're at 18 lore, you're at 18 lore, and they're trying to come back in the game. Can they really afford to quest over the course of a couple turns, or do they need to build up and then do it all at one turn to make sure they don't lose to your Goofy, letting you maybe draw something else to get out of the game? But those cards, along with Mulan and some of the old standbys there with Tremaine's Medusa, Stitch, Maleficent, and Chernobog, been a lot of fun playing today and a little bit yesterday, and I'm looking forward to playing a bit more later this week with pretty much this exact list, trying some cards out here and there, making some swaps, trying a little bit of more aggressive styles or more controlling styles. But this has been something I'm excited for, and might be bringing Chicago. Honestly, we're gonna have, I think, in between Atlanta and Chicago, I don't think anything's been announced quite yet as far as events, but there may be, or may not be, an online event in between those dates. We'll see. Yeah, we have a whole new format and not much time to prep for, and this is gonna be a deck I expect to see. I expect to see Mufasa in some capacity looking like this or similar to this, with a few cards change here and there depending on how the meta evolves quickly.
Well, DeCandio, we appreciate you bringing an update to Mufasa from Set 4 and for giving us an overview of that. Before we kind of wrap up with our final thoughts, again, just thank y'all so much for bringing the deck techs here and for talking about Set 4. Where can people find you to watch your content or to see your play style and playing games in the future, Jebas?
You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jebas, or I do put all my VODs and stuff up on YouTube at JebasSBB, and Twitter. Sometimes I put some thoughts as well at the same at JebasSBB.
Awesome. I'll make sure to have those links in the description. And Wonderland, where can we find you and watch some of your streams?
Also at twitch.tv/Wonderland streams with 2 V's instead of a W in Wonderland. I also do YouTube occasionally, but most of my content is on Twitch, and I guess also Twitter. Twitter/Luke Wonderland, also with 2 V's instead of a W. I stream from about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time every day, Monday through Friday.
But we will have that link in the description. Thank you so much, Wonderland, for that. And DeCandio, where can we find you and watch some of your content in the future?
Yeah, on the screen there, at BDeCandio7, Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, all the stuff, YouTube, same handle for everything. I kind of post things at various places for various reasons. If I stream, it's usually early in the Eastern AM, 8:30 or so. Not consistent with that right now. I'm trying, but I have a day job, and it kind of is a bit hard sometimes to do both at the same time. But yeah, post up to YouTube, especially videos of tournaments that come through, and always happy to chat. If I can, I try and respond to people within 24 hours usually. So, but no, it's thanks for having us, and yeah, if you want to get at me, you can go to those places.
Thank you so much, DeCandio. We appreciate it. Thank you all again so much for taking time out of your day, your week, to talk about Set 4 and giving us a little review and insight into some decks that may be viable for the future. So thank you all for joining us here today.